Thanks for everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Bully Resistance Show. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that there's two ways that you can actually help me continue the fight against bullying in the public schools. First, if you haven't subscribed to the Bully Resistance Show, it doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is just go to my website at www.davebond.org, and you'll see the banner and that says subscribe, and all you have to do is just click on that. The second way that you can help, you can be a monthly sponsor as low as $4 per month, and in return, you're going to get a free weekly digital download of a track of mine or a song of mine from the CDs that I have out, and also a monthly digital download CD. Now this way, you're not just giving money away, but you're getting something in return. So all you have to do is just go to my website at www.davebond.org, scroll down and click on the Patreon banner, and it's going to take you to get you or to give you some more information about that. So with no further ado, sit back and enjoy the next Bully Resistance Show. The Bully Resistance Show is brought to you by Parkersburg Jiu-Jitsu, a Pedro Sauer affiliate located in Vienna, West Virginia. Go to parkersburgbjj.com, or you can call 740-591-2706. And if you mention the Bully Resistance Show, you're going to receive 2 free weeks of training in self-defense and also a private lesson from one of our instructors. Restrictions do apply. The Bully Resistance Show is brought to you by Planet Fitness, located in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and Marietta, Ohio. They strive to create a workout environment where everyone feels accepted and respected. That's why at Planet Fitness in Parkersburg and Marietta, they take care to make sure their club is clean and welcoming. Their staff is friendly. There's certified trainers. Everything's there. So whether you're a first-time gym user or a fitness veteran, you'll always have a home in their judgment-free zone.
Welcome, everyone, to the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells, nationally known smooth jazz artist, CEO and co-founder of the Chocolate Jazz Foundation, and the co-host of a 2-hour syndicated radio program called Chocolate Jazz Radio. Bully Resistance is a weekly 1-hour show that's a motivational, informative, and inspirational program. We will have interviews with musicians, actors, government officials, politicians, psychologists, counselors, and just average day citizens. Of course, the topics will include making right choices, never giving up desire, discipline, determination, bullying in public schools, the workplace, and in your community, bully resistance and prevention, self-defense, jiu-jitsu, and current affairs, and much, much more. And if you're ready, we are. Here's your host, David Wells.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells. My name is David, and today we have a special guest that will give us some advice and steps on how to deal with stress with bullying. Also, he has graduated with his master's degree in counselor education. He was the therapist and program director of Westbrook Health Services for, 15 years?
Yeah, I was the therapist there, and then for a couple years I was a program director. Okay.
But also, you worked with adults, children, and families in individual, group, and couples counseling, and was then trained in family systems therapy, grief therapy, and working with trauma survivors with problem gamblers. So at this time, I want to introduce Russ. Is it Philpott?
Yeah, Philpott.
Philpott on the Bully Resistance Show. Russ, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Hey, if you could do me a favor, can you just give the listeners a better idea of who you are, where you were born, where you were raised, and actually how and why you got into the counseling, psychology, psychiatrist type of field?
Yeah, sure thing. So I was raised on the mean streets of Allison Park, Pennsylvania. And when I say mean streets, it was a suburb, a very nice suburb of Pittsburgh. And I'm the son of an engineer, my dad, and then my mom was a mental health therapist for many, many years. And so Yeah, I think I got it honestly that way. Both my parents have a thirst for learning and education, and my mom was an avid reader, and she would give me like self-help books like when I was like 13, 14, 15 years old. And looking back now with my kids, if I gave them a self-help book, I don't think they would read it. But I would I would devour this information, and it just kind of caught fire from there. So when I went to college, I knew I wanted to get into psychology.
Okay, so did school come easy for you then?
School wasn't the actual learning part of school wasn't too difficult. I did have to work at it, and I always tried. And I wasn't always the top of the class, but I was near the top part, probably in the top 80%, I would guess.
Okay, so I know you have one son, Aiden.
Yes.
Is that the only one, or do you have more?
Aiden is 8, and then my daughter is Allison, and she's 16, and then I have a stepdaughter, Alex, and she's 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So, help us to figure out what's the difference between a psychiatrist and then a therapist. They're pretty much similar?
Well, so psychiatrist is someone who's actually gone through medical school, and so they can prescribe medications. So then you have the next layer down, like the people who are therapists will do therapy, and there's 3 different fields of study that will feed into that. So I got my master's in counselor education, and then some people will get their master's in social work, and then some people will get a master's in psychology, and all of those master's level clinicians can do therapy. So all 3 of them can be called therapists, although they have different credentials.
Now, of course, Russ, you know that jiu-jitsu is a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And, of course, Aiden attends the kids class, where I help assist and teaching there. Let me ask you, why, I'm not even for sure how old you are. You don't have to tell me.
40, somewhere around 46.
46?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. So why did you get involved in one of the toughest martial arts, most physical martial arts, that has the biggest turnover, than any of the other martial arts?
When you say the biggest turnover, like the most people drop out?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know any of that. So when I started watching when the UFC Ultimate Fighter reality show came out, and I started watching that, and the thing that I just absolutely fell in love with was the guys who would do the submissions and the rolls and the sweeps and all the ground game kind of stuff like that.
See, Russ, honestly, if anybody knows you or what you look like, you just don't look like you would. I think you're a border. You don't look like you really would get involved in watching the UFC, people pounding each other,
right?
Let alone getting jiu-jitsu, submitting, choking people. But I mean, but you get this look that you could be pretty fierce. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I'm not fierce at all. When I was running the crisis unit back in like 2005, I had an employee that was surprised to know that I cut my own grass. And so I must like put off this air that I'm just not incredibly tough or manly or things like that.
Now, see, I don't cut my grass.
Oh, really?
My wife cuts my grass. Now, listen, it's because she wants to cut the grass.
Yeah.
And it was funny because we've had couples saying, we never see David cut the grass, but she just wants the exercise. So if I'm in town or if I'm here, I leave until the grass is cut. But I'm not, as a musician, as a jazz artist, a lot of people are, shocked that I actually do jiu-jitsu. And so, and especially at my age.
Gotcha.
Let me ask you this. So, why with Aiden? I think Aiden is hilarious. I mean,
You're just getting him started too. He's just starting to feel more comfortable and open up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's
get
funny.
ready.
Last Saturday, it was we had class together, and we did this one type of drill and everything else where the person actually is on top of you, and you have to get out from the bottom.
Yeah.
And we were side by side. I was on the bottom with Sean, and then he was on the bottom with I think Ian or somebody else. And I hear This is what I hear him say, David, help me. David, help me.
Did he really?
Yeah. But it was funny because he was laughing too.
Yeah.
And so I got his foot. I was dragging him. And then, so he hounds me the last couple of times on Monday and Wednesday. He goes, Dave, why didn't you help me? I said, well, because I was underneath this guy trying to get out myself. But so anyway, why did you get Aiden involved in jiu-jitsu? I know that, I'm a firm believer on how good therapy. I mean, it is good therapy to be involved in jiu-jitsu. But why did you get Aiden involved? And he's the one is he 8, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He got involved because I got involved, and we had tried him in other sports and like soccer and swimming and some different things like that. And he seems to have no interest in doing anything that's not electronically driven. So this was when I tried it out, he was willing to try it out. And for some reason he said yes. And then after like the first class or so, then he kept wanting to go back, which is unusual for him. So, I was glad. And when I thought back to my childhood, that there was just having the mental toughness was probably something that I could have benefited from. And then also just not knowing how to handle myself, handle conflict, or if someone was to get physically aggressive. Kids push each other around and stuff like that. And so I thought this would be nice, and I'm glad he's taken to it. Not that I don't want him to be aggressive, but I want him to be able to know that he could handle himself or have some strategies to do that.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Going back in your school years, from elementary to high school, how was your experience with bullying? I mean, did you ever get bullied, or did you see people get bullied, or it was you just were sort of fortunate that you just sort of flowed through school?
I flowed through, and I make friends pretty easily, and I don't offend people, and I try to stay out of anything that's kind of confrontational that way. So I didn't have a lot of problems with that. Of course, you're always going to have somebody that doesn't like you, somebody that wants to get in your face, somebody that wants to stare you down, somebody that wants to intimidate you. So there were occasions when that would happen. And then, of course, with guys, every once in a while you end up on, everyone kind of gangs up on you.
Sure.
Now, whether it's in good fun or if it's, if in general, it was more of that. Now, the guys can sometimes take that too far, but I wasn't really targeted as someone to be bullied.
Okay. Let me ask you this. As a professional like yourself in therapy, why do you think kids or even adults bully? I mean, do you feel like, and here's what and I'll give you time to think about it. Here's what I tell people, especially in the school assemblies. I tell them that, bullies are pretty much individuals that have low self-esteem, that they don't think they can do certain things well, or they don't think they can do anything well. So what they'll do, they'll pick on somebody smaller than themselves or that can't defend themselves to make themselves feel better. That's the nutshell of the thing. Why do you think, I guess, kids and adults bully then?
I think that's probably a big part of it. And I was curious to hear what, because you do the work in the schools, to see what you would say about that. But I think the low self-esteem and not knowing how to navigate life. And it's like, I think, and I don't know that they intentionally set out to be bullies. It's not like they wake up that morning and say,
right.
But then it's like, okay, what am I good at? Okay, I'm not good at school, or I'm not good at making friends, and life is really hard. And sometimes, in conjunction with the low self-esteem, it's like, I wonder, do people really have good emotional coping strategies to know how to handle the stress of school or whatever their family life is, to be able to manage that? So sometimes I think they're trying to find something that will, like you said, help them feel powerful, or help them to feel like that they're in charge of something.
Well, let me ask you this. So, in the last 10 years or so, and especially in in what you do, you counsel, from kids to adults and about different things. Do you feel personally that bullying is getting worse, or do you feel like it's just like this little stigma it's like a cloud that just is over top of us all the time?
That's hard for me to say. Although the nature of bullying, I think, has changed. And I think with the electronic media and the social media, and the ability for bullying to happen at a much faster speed, and to incorporate many more people at a faster rate, like things that would take us when we were going through school that might have taken a couple days or a week to circulate, can probably circulate in about 5, 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
Just with that electronics. So I think the nature of it has kind of changed.
There's so many statistics out online and everything else on stopbullying.gov and everything else. And so if you look at all the statistics, you know that a lot of people are dealing with bullying. If the kids are dealing with bullying, or the parents are dealing with bullying because their kids are getting bullied, stress is a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I can understand it, because if my kids were getting bullied, it would be, it's hard not to get emotionally attached and to try to go ahead and take things in my own hands. First of all, how can kids deal with the stress with bullying, or maybe even in adults? How can adults deal with the stress without getting so emotional? And because honestly, man, I've been on both sides, from talking with teachers, the administration as well. I've been on the sides with the parents, and they get so emotionally involved, and they take these actions by emotion, and they want it stopped right then. The whole good news, Russ, about the whole thing. A lot of us get bullied, but it always stops. It's just, and I honestly, I'm thinking, what? I don't remember, and I tell this on a lot of my podcasts, I don't remember the word bullying. I remember, teasing and picking on everything else. Yeah. But getting back to the question, how can parents best deal with the stress of bullying? Their kids being bullied. Is there like any formula? Is there anything that they can do besides like working out, or anything that you could tell us?
Anything that promotes good emotional movement is going to be something that's helpful for any kind of stress. And it's always the question of what's the appropriate intervention for parents to help their kids to manage that. But you're talking about the parent stress.
Honestly, it's like a two-part question.
Okay.
I mean, what kind of advice if a child would come to you for therapy because he's emotionally distraught and everything else, and he can't deal with life? What is some advice that you would tell that child?
Yeah.
And then also the adult.
So I take a similar approach. So I start with a foundation for both the kids and the adults in talking about what is the nature of thinking, what is the nature of how to manage emotions, and then how do we look at our behavioral options and drawing and keeping and maintaining assertive boundaries. So when I'm talking about thoughts, I want to teach kids that we have all these thoughts that go through our heads, somewhere between 60,000 and 80,000 that go through our head in one day.
Whoa.
And in that stream of thoughts, we have very, very negative thoughts, we have very, very positive thoughts, neutral thoughts, and everything in between. And what I say is we don't know where negative thoughts come from, and I don't know how to stop them. And I always offer to people, if you figure out a way to stop negative thoughts from happening, let me know. We'll write a book.
Yeah.
Oprah will come out of retirement
That's right.
to
and
interview
you make your
us.
Millions.
Yes. Yeah, we won't have to worry about money.
Right.
But until then, we have to work on how do we navigate or how do we manage our relationship with those thoughts. And what we find is if there's a thought that comes up, so if I get in a situation where somebody at school is pushing me around or pushing a kid around, then it's like, okay, how does that kid respond to it? And if they're saying, I can't handle this is too much, and that's where my focus goes, then I start to fuel that negative thought with my focus. And the other thing I teach people too is like wherever you're we talk about this in jiu-jitsu class. Wherever your head goes, your body follows. So same in psychology and same with life. Wherever your mind goes, your body will follow. And your body can't tell the difference between something that's real and something that's imagined. So a kid starts focusing on, I can't handle this, then their body starts going over and following where the mind is, and it creates the experience of I can't handle this. And so then the stress levels are going to go up at that time. So then it's like, okay, is this an intervention where we need to help someone better manage their thoughts or better manage their stress levels or their emotions? Or this kid's really getting ganged up on and has no way to defend themselves or to get out of this situation?
Okay, let me ask you this. So when the child gets to that point where I can't handle this, and his body is reacting like I can't handle this.
Yeah.
Do you think are they getting into some type of mental illness at that point? And the reason why I'm asking is this is because we hear so many stories on the media where kids have committed suicide because of the bullying. So, and I'm thinking, Russ. I mean, really, with bullying, bullying is horrible.
Yeah.
But it seems like the average person would be able to handle the bullying if it doesn't get, these horrible thoughts where their bodies is taken over. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or the emotions. So,
right.
I mean, do you feel that when that happens, do they have some type of mental illness? Would you consider that, or is that it's still in the pre-stages of what you talk about?
I would think it's the pre-stages, and I guess it depends on that person's experiences up until that point. And so when I talk about like emotions management, then it's like as those feelings come up of frustration or feeling helpless or feeling hopeless or feeling trapped in that situation, and it's like I always compare our emotional management to like a toilet. And sorry if this gets a little bit gross, but it's like, when you have the poop in the toilet and you flush it, as long as the plumbing lines are open and clear, then that has somewhere to go and it goes away and you don't have to deal with that anymore. But if the plumbing lines are clogged and then you try to flush, then instead of the poop going away, it comes back up to the surface. And so then you have an emotional backlog and emotions keep flowing. So when that initial thing gets stuck, then all this other stuff starts getting backed up behind that. And when someone has that with the frustration of not knowing how to get out of a situation, and they repeat that over and over and over, and their regular daily life experience is one of hopelessness or this won't get better or I can't handle this, then we start looking at, depression, anxiety, some of those kinds of things that can kind of develop into more of the mental illness phase, but not necessarily at first. But I always say, too, you don't have to be in a mental illness to get stuck. So everyone gets stuck at different times, and it's like, well, I gave you the example, too, of when I teased you that you were bullying me.
That's right. You better not forget it.
Yeah. So Dave in jiu-jitsu class put me into his full guard,
right, and
said, okay, go ahead and get out. And I struggled for 3 or 4 minutes and it totally got exhausted and I couldn't find a way out. And eventually you swept me and submitted, or, I had to give up.
Right.
But I felt trapped at that time, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I was so frustrated and I didn't know what to do to manage that situation.
Because it was your lack of knowledge.
Yes.
Or didn't know what to do.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons why you're around, is so you can actually, give these people information on how to deal with these emotions.
Yes. And I catch them in the office, and I love what you're doing about going into the schools and giving them a game plan for,
sure,
okay, here's some strategies on how to do that, because I never really thought about, unless my kids actually bring it home and they actually talk about it, then that's not, there will be times that we see them getting pushed around or whatever, but,
right,
if that doesn't happen in their household, where are they going to get that information?
So your solution or your advice to the kids is they just have to, when they have these bad thoughts, you just have to channel it somewhere else. Well, instead of getting backed up and then where their body and emotions they to take over and they just get frantic and everything else and go into the depression. Is that correct?
Yes, and then also what you were saying too made a lot of sense. It's like they lack the knowledge to navigate those situations. So yes, I want to make sure that they're managing their thoughts. I want to manage their emotions so they don't get stuck and backed up. But then also the behavioral responses, we want to give them a strategy for how to navigate that.
Right. Let me ask you this: is it true? Is there a big percentage of adults and kids that have, quote, mental illness? I mean, is there a lot of people that have mental illness, or is it because I'm hearing these studies like 1 out of 4? People have mental illness. Is that like a high? Is that a higher percentage than that you know of?
So, do they qualify for a mental illness at some point in their life?
Right.
So we have something that we can diagnose people with when that is a billable diagnosis, and it's called an adjustment disorder. And it's like everyone experiences pain, trauma, things that they get stuck in. If you lose someone that you're extremely close to, are you going to have some depression at that time? Most likely. What's the difference between depression and grief? Well, we have to kind of sort that out. How do you know if it's just grief or depression? But even with that grief, someone would qualify for, quote unquote, a mental illness at that time.
Okay.
Now, that's different than someone who is having chronic depression, or if they've had something that they've been battling since, childhood or teenage years, for the last 20, 30 years, then we would say, okay, that's more of a chronic mental illness that we're dealing with then, as opposed to a situational kind of stress that they're dealing with.
Okay. Going into a different direction, in regards to bullying, in talking with a lot of parents have their own way of disciplining their child, and I'm talking about if they realize that their child is being a bully. Matter of fact, there was Russ, there was a video out where his daughter was bullying kids on the bus, and so how he disciplined that, he said, the next time I hear that you're bullying any kids on the bus, I'm going to make you walk to school. And I don't know how long the school was, or how many miles.
Yeah.
But he actually videotaped him driving, and she's walking outside. I'm not for sure about the weather was like, if it was cold or if it was raining or anything else. But he made her walk all the way to school.
Wow.
To discipline.
And then he filmed it and put it online?
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, parents, what can you tell a parent? Because there's no parent that wants to go ahead and for their kids to be bullies. I mean, they don't. How would you go about disciplining if you had Aiden? If Aiden was bullying, how would you tell him to stop bullying? I mean, what type of measures would you do, for him to stop?
Yeah, and while I don't believe that he's a bully, we have definitely seen times over the years when he's been mean to other kids.
Yeah, which is like a one-time thing,
Sure,
right?
Sure, but we're starting with a discussion about empathy. How would you like it if you were treated that way? How would you like it if it felt that way? And then we're also looking at what's an appropriate consequence, because I think it helps if there's a little bit of sting to it, and if you can tie it to a consequence. I guess the thing I like about the bus example, when the guy made the daughter walk to school,
right,
is that it was directly tied to, if you can't behave yourself on the bus, then we're going to take you off the bus, and you're going to have the pain of walking to school. So there should be a sting there. And it's debatable, and I don't know how many times this has happened, so that, do you need to actually put them and broadcast that on social media or YouTube or whatever?
Right.
That's debatable, but I always think that the punishment should match the crime and the intensity. Is this a one-time thing that can be easily corrected with just a slight course correction or discipline? Or no, you're not getting the message, then we have to kind of take a different approach. Why isn't it getting through to that person? Why do they not connect? Why that's not a good behavior? Or what else might be fueling it at that point?
Let me ask you this. Have you, in your line of work, have you ever had clients that was dealing with bullying? And I'm not talking about necessarily kids, but adults, at the workplace, I mean, anything like that? I mean, have you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, are you able to just give us a gist of, like a story that you were dealing with that you're like thinking, good grief, I can't believe this is happening?
I can give you a general instance, and, there are times when someone might be, put on the outside of a clique or a work group, and people might shut them out of communication. They might shut them out of activities or things that are going on in the office, or they might restrict their access to certain information that they need to do their job, that makes them look bad. When actually it's somebody else withholding. Or you can see people grouping together, and then also if they decide they don't like somebody, can really target or make life uncomfortable for them.
Yeah, what's funny is bullying. It just doesn't happen in schools, but it does happen in the communities.
Oh yeah.
Matter of fact, I told this story one time. I had a friend that was worked as a chaplain in Pittsburgh at a really nice first class nursing home. It's like independent living.
Okay.
And I mean, these people were wealthy, and you can tell. And it was funny because when I was doing this, I had this interview with the podcast. I was letting them know. I said, yeah, I was having lunch with him, and he said, well, I have to go. And I said, well, why do you have to go? And he said, well, we have this person coming in that's going to do a seminar on bullying. And I'm thinking, well, my first thoughts was, okay, obviously they're having issues with the staff bullying the residents. That wasn't the case. It was the residents bullying other residents.
I gotcha.
And it was just one of those things. So, I mean, it happens. I mean, there's been a few times I've been bullied because of what I do online. And, so it happens. So do you feel like bullying is just a huge problem in the community as well, or is just?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, and most of the time when I'm working with people like that, it's people that are very passive, or they're very accommodating, or are trying to get really work hard to get people pleasing kind of stuff.
Right.
And so I love the approach, and one of the things I'm glad about when I took Aiden to the kids' jiu-jitsu class is they would take time, and you guys would take time to teach them about how to manage bullying. And I wish that, and when I heard that, I was like, oh, I wish I had heard that when I was a kid, because I had no idea, no strategies on how to manage that. So I would usually just make jokes, or I would try to be as quiet or as invisible as possible so that people wouldn't pick on me at those times.
Right.
So Aiden actually shared with his second grade teacher the 3 T's that they teach. She wasn't pleased with all 3 of them, and she was hoping just to make them the 2 T's. So the first one is talk and say, and I've actually used this in my counseling session with adults, is to say, hey, I don't want to fight with you, but I am prepared to defend myself.
Yeah.
And I think that statement alone is so powerful. And if I had known that a long time ago, there's a lot of junk that I probably wouldn't have put up with, or that I could have sent a stronger message to somebody.
Right.
And so he shared, don't, talk to him and give him that message. The second T of tell a trusted adult.
Right.
And doing that. So the teacher liked both of those. She did not care for the one where he said to tackle, but without the context that I'm sure 8-year-old Aiden probably left out with a teacher was, that's only if there's physical aggression towards them.
Right. That's one thing that I like. We both go at the Parkersburg Jiu-Jitsu in Vienna.
Yeah.
And Mike, Stump, and Jason, they really, I think they probably have a talking with the kids maybe once every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And because one of the things that I don't tolerate, and I know we all have bad days, and I know that we get upset and we'll say, something mean to somebody, and it's a one-time thing. Bullying is, of course, but for someone to be in jiu-jitsu with the kids, I think I have a low tolerance of kids just being mean. I don't care if it's one time or not.
Yeah.
I think that I want this jiu-jitsu place to be a safe haven.
Yeah.
For kids, because a lot of them go through bullying.
Yep.
And that's the last thing they want to do is come back and get looked down on and get bullied. And I think with Mike, it is just a place where we nip it in the bud. No matter how small it might be.
Yep.
And I think jiu-jitsu can really help kids that bully.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's a totally different podcast in itself. But let me ask you this, Russ: how can people get to connect with you either through social media or your website if they just want to know more about you?
So I have a business in Vienna, West Virginia, New Day Therapy. So we have a website, newdaytherapy.net. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page, and I have different videos and Facebook Live videos talking about some of those more in depth about those thought concepts, and that's at New Day Therapy WV. It's just New Day Therapy WV on Facebook. Okay.
What I'll do is that once we get this show up, we'll go ahead and just put that on my social media.
Nice.
And before we wrap things up, I usually ask the person I'm interviewing what we call super questions.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can answer these questions short answered. Okay. And then and then we'll just go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay. So the first question is, what is your definition of success?
Success for me is being what. I thought it was going to be an easy answer. For me, I look at, and I've really redefined, I guess, with my business and my life, is how can I be of service to others, and how can I be a light for them and help them get to a place of more stability and make sure their foundation is strong. So if I'm doing that, I see that as success.
So if you're helping somebody to be successful, then that's...
Yes.
Is that
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
What's one word that best describes you? It could be in jiu-jitsu. It could be as a therapist or anything.
Jiu-jitsu would be complete novice.
You're getting good, though, I have to tell you.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
But I keep coming back. It's my bi-weekly butt whooping is what I call it.
Bi-weekly?
Yeah.
How often do you go?
Well, I try to go about twice a week. Is that bi-weekly?
No.
That's that's bi-monthly?
Bi-weekly?
I get confused with that.
You're talking about bi-monthly.
Okay.
No, I don't know what it is. It's just
I go twice a week.
Okay. So what's one word that best describes you?
I would say student. And, I talked about my parents and their love of learning, and generationally in my family, that's always been something. And I guess as a 46-year-old male starting my martial arts career, it's being a student and learning.
Always, that's good.
Yeah.
What is one of your biggest pet peeves?
Fortune cookies.
You just don't like that? It's just a pet
No, I like the taste of them, but when I open them up, they often just give good advice, but it's not a fortune. So I think they should just be advice cookies.
Okay. Let's see. What natural gift would you most like to possess? Natural gift.
I would love to be able to hit a long, towering home run in baseball.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was the first time I've ever heard that before.
Yeah.
Where did that come from, Russ?
Well, for some reason, I always wanted to be like that. Jose Canseco was like, and I'm embarrassed to say he was like my hero at that time.
Right.
But he was big, he was strong, he was fast, and he could hit these towering home runs. And I guess, and as I always thought, man, wouldn't that be awesome to be able to do that? And I think that's one of those things I had to come to terms with is I'm not that.
Right.
And that's not my gift. That's not my skill. But, if I could possess that and just hit one long towering home run, I would relish in that.
Right. Not to get sidetracked, one of the things that I tell the kids, just knowing about bullies, how they have low self-esteem, I try, when I do these school assemblies, I really try to build their self-esteem. And one of the things that I tell them is that I believe, honestly, with anybody, I believe that everyone has a special gift and they have a special talent.
Yeah.
It's not always music. It could be sports. It could be anything. And that nothing ever comes easy. And I mentioned this to him is that, what's funny? What I'm noticing is that when things get tough for people, the easiest choice, because I talk about making right choices, and it's funny because even though it's such an easy topic, it's so hard to make the right choices all the time. But the easiest choice for us to make as kids, when things aren't going our way, either in sports or in school, is to quit. Anybody can quit, and I tell them that you can be average person with this talent, or you can go ahead and work hard. Nothing ever comes easy, but that's another podcast. Well, I'll have to have you come back on the podcast.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, one last question.
Yeah.
Tell me something true that almost nobody agrees with you on besides jiu-jitsu.
That nobody agrees with me about?
Yeah, now this could be your wife, she might not agree with you, or anything.
I'm going to plead the fifth on that. There's nothing I can say here that's not going to cause me more problems.
Okay. Well, that's about all we have for the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells. Before we go, I want to let you know that there's ways that you can help me fight against bullying. As I mentioned before, you can share this show with Russ. Philpott. On the social media, Facebook page, Instagram, and it's all about bringing awareness, against bullying. So you can do that. Also, this will be on my social media on Facebook, the different pages there. Secondly, if you haven't subscribed to the Bully Resistance Show, it doesn't cost you anything. Just go to my website at www.davebond.org. And then thirdly, you can be a monthly supporter as low as $5 per month, which is just one specialty coffee. Of course, at Starbucks. Do you go to Starbucks?
I occasionally.
Okay. Nothing really good about Starbucks, but it's just coffee,
I like it.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
I think it's the specialty drinks, that I like. I think their regular coffee is just too strong.
I gotcha. I like that, though.
But anyway, in return, if to be a monthly supporter, you can receive the Song of the Week, or depending on the sponsorship, you can actually receive a digital download CD of the month. There's 16 CDs that you can pick from, and all you have to do is just go to www.davebond.org, and you can click the Patreon banner. So until next time, thanks for listening.